Hello and welcome to our Tech and Sec Weekly. My name's Chris Cubbage. I'm the editor with MySecurityTV. Today we're joined by Carl Solder, the Chief Technology Officer with Cisco Systems Australia and New Zealand. Carl, thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Chris.
Carl, we're going to be diving into AI defence, both from a security context as well, but also the deployment of AI within enterprise. And you're really at the front seat here, talking to enterprise, not only with sort of that knowledge of what Cisco brings to the table, but also how enterprise are sort of grappling with this. And 2025 is kind of seen as the year that enterprise will start to deploy AI applications and the like. And once it's deployed, we're going to start to see how vulnerable it is and where they might be going wrong. But yeah, just your general sort of status on AI defence, relatively new as well. And then we'll dive into what we're going to call the AI readiness, the foundational building blocks.
Yes, you're absolutely right. I mean, AI is probably the number one talk topic. When I get to meet with customers and partners, we get talking. There's a bunch of things that they normally talk about, but I would say at least over the last 6 to 9 months, AI is always at the top of the conversation.
Yeah.
A lot of customers want understanding what's happening in the marketplace, what are we doing, what are we developing, where other customers' heads are at with respect to what they're looking to implement in AI. So it's a very interesting conversation, learning a lot along the way.
And I think the other thing is I hear it even from the auditors and the security professionals, generally security's been deploying AI or machine learning, automation for quite some time. Yes. And Cisco's definitely been talking about that for some time, particularly with software-defined networking and that kind of automation. But this is kind of a new realm, really. AI agents and the like coming into play, and enterprise are now wanting a bit of return on investment as well, right? We've been talking about AI, but where's that return? How's Cisco approaching it, and maybe talk us through AI defence and that approach?
Sure. So AI has been around for a very long time, but I think it was the emergence of ChatGPT that really raised awareness around a lot of individuals in IT space of the opportunities and the power and the capabilities of what AI could bring to the table. And I think that has resulted in a very deep focus across the industry, with organizations and vendors alike looking to innovate, looking to figure out how we can use these tool sets to drive better outcomes for businesses. Ultimately. So yeah, AI has been around a long time. Cisco has been in the game around AI for over a decade. We launched our first AI product back in 2018, which was kind of an anomaly detection and troubleshooting capability for Wi-Fi networks to make it simpler and easier to identify problems and then resolve and remediate that. But as I said, along the way, when ChatGPT came out, we've seen this acceleration, this new capability around large language models and the opportunities that presents in driving unique and differentiated use cases for organizations. Now, I think the challenge for the security professionals out there is that we've got a very comprehensive suite of security technologies out there to protect and provide and build our security posture for the organization. But when you look at AI specifically, a lot of those tool sets, while they can secure who can access those AI models and those applications, they don't necessarily or not optimized to secure how a user uses the AI apps or the models. So for example, I can set up a firewall policy, a filtering option to say Chris can or cannot access this particular application. And there's a lot of tools that can do that today. Yeah. But if Chris were to say, issue a prompt, how do I hotwire a car? Think about what solutions in the marketplace today that could be used to stop that. You're starting to get into the realms of using regular expressions, content filtering, maybe some natural language processing techniques. There are ways to do it, but it's a little bit more challenging, a little bit more difficult to stop that. And so this represents a challenge for the industry on how do we protect organizations who are starting to make these models, these applications available from misuse. And that's ultimately the thesis behind what we're doing with AI defense. AI defense, unlike our other security solutions, is looking at how we can secure how a user will use a model or an application. And that opens up, I think, it opens up a range of innovations that we're starting to bring to market. that we're letting customers understand so they have more confidence in being able to adopt and deploy and make those solutions available for their customers and end users.
Is the AI testing itself in terms of its own vulnerability, as you say? Because I have heard, there has been some sort of examples where AI agents have, as you say, if the user doesn't use it in the way that it's been trained, it can break, or there are inherent vulnerabilities. What's the approach here? Is it the system itself learning from what those vulnerabilities could be from other case studies?
So there's actually a range of a number of industry standard bodies, OWASP, NIST, MITRE, who've already documented over 200 vulnerabilities that are there with models and apps today. So for a security practitioner, if you want to close all those off, you have to go off, you have to do a lot of research, have to understand the nuances of all those vulnerabilities, and then think about how you can close that down. And what we've done with AI Defence is that we've taken that knowledge and we've actually built it into a cloud service so that we can actually do AI-based automated red team testing. In effect, what you might do manually, it might take you weeks to do. We, at a click of a button, we can point to a particular model and we can have this AI model run this penetration testing exercise against the model. And then in an instance, in a few minutes, come back and say, of all these vulnerabilities, we've passed these, we've failed these. And then we have the ability to say, for those that have failed, we have a ready-made set of guardrails, which at a click of a button, you can choose to implement, and the system will then go and deploy those guardrails to close down those vulnerabilities for the organization. That's in essence what we're trying to do here.
Well, I was going to say there's a couple of things there. Is what type of time frame is involved? Obviously, the go-to-market can be shortened. How quickly does it actually do that? Is it surprisingly quite quick, or is it in the development stage? Is it or post-release?
So the solution actually went general availability last Friday. So you can actually, customers can now start taking advantage of this solution. The solution itself has been developed probably over the last 2 years. But what we've done is that we've got a lot of innovation, plus we've acquired some companies along the way where we're leveraging that technology to provide that service. But ultimately what AI Defence does, four key things. The first thing is it provides a visibility engine. So in your organization, there's probably going to be a number of official AI apps that are being used and consumed by users and customers. There's also the potential for shadow AI. I mean, I know, and I've spoken to a lot of customers who on the quiet will go off to ChatGPT or Gemini and do things outside of the scope of what the organization does. So first thing we can do is we can actually identify all the approved and all the unauthorized models and apps that are in the organization. We can create a little bit of a map. We can show that this particular model is using these data sets. You can see which users are using the app. So at a glance, you first of all got an audit, which is pretty good. The second thing we can do is that validation. So for a given model, let's say we have just downloaded a new version of, I don't know, Llama or Hugging Face, and we're going to be using that for driving a particular business app. So we can actually run that automated red team testing on that model. And we can, in a couple of minutes, we can get an understanding of what vulnerabilities that particular model has open. Once we've done that, we can then actually generate a list of suggested guardrails. These are the protections that you can actually implement to close down those vulnerabilities. And it's literally a click of a button, and they will then get deployed in the network to close that down. And then the last thing that we've got is a component we call AI Defence, which is really looking at how users use those models. So for example, in your example, I said where I issue a prompt like, how do I hotwire a car? Or can you give me the contact details of all the employees in the organization? We can lock those prompts down. If they're harmful, if they're toxic, if they're designed to try to trick the model into giving maybe confidential information. There's over 750 apps that we can identify, and we can lock down those prompts either issued from the user, or if the user were to craft a prompt that maybe instead of asking it to hotwire a car, I say, I'm a research scientist and I'm doing some analysis on how to protect against hot wiring. What would be your suggestion? And try to trick it into giving you that answer. we can actually capture that as a response from the model and also lock that down as well. So the protection runs both ways. So it gives organizations a little bit of peace of mind. As I said, you can, with a lot of manual effort, close these things down, but going through 200 plus vulnerabilities, keeping track of new vulnerabilities that pop up along the way, it's a lot of work that's placed on the security professionals. So we're trying to simplify that whole process for them.
And so it is monitoring live. So you basically turn it on into the network or the enterprise IT, and then it can also pick up if someone starts to use an AI tool. It'll pick that up, will it?
What happens is that you click a button and we can identify the models, the apps, the data sets. We can then choose a model and say validate it, and it will come back with the guardrails, with the result of the test and any guardrails that need to be deployed, and then we can click and deploy those guardrails. So that's something that you would be doing on a continual basis, because anytime you download a new model, anytime you retrain, anytime you tweak the parameters around how the model is supposed to be working, you could potentially open up a new vulnerability. So you have to continually be testing this. But once you've actually created the guardrails and they get instantiated in the network, then for every bit of data that's going backwards or forwards, those guardrails are going to be passing that, looking for those different forms of threats, those different forms of prompt injection attacks, things like that, to lock that down.
Is this, at what level is this? You mentioned network, but is it down all the way down to the application level as well?
Ultimately, it is looking to protect the models. So like within the model itself, there could be vulnerabilities, and also looking at the prompts and responses that are between the user and the application. So again, it's focusing on how the user is using the model. So I define a security policy that says Chris can access this application, and I could be using any number of existing today's security solutions to open or to permit or deny that connection. But once you've got that connection, then how you're using it is where AI defense comes into play, and those guardrails and those policies are put in place to basically police how you're using it. That's what we're trying to do.
And the other aspect is this only has a security approach. Is that right? There's no efficiency monitoring or anything like that. Yeah.
Correct. It is a security approach. It's securing how you use those models. So we're looking at both the models. Like, for example, you download a model, it has some malware in it. How do you detect that? Okay, we can identify if as I said, someone is crafting very cleverly a series of prompts to try to trick the model into giving it an answer that the organization doesn't want it to give. We can also lock that down.
And what's the response there, Carl, in terms of, okay, let's say someone's trying to game something. Does it block it? Does it raise an alert? Does it integrate to another platform and raise it in the SOC or something like that?
All of the above. So what happens is so in the dashboard, one thing which I will mention is that if I take a step back, about 18 months ago, Cisco announced this new initiative called Cisco Security Cloud. It's a kind of an architectural approach to security, where rather than building kind of best of breed security products that kind of focus on a different slice of your security posture, this thing is looking at everything as one. So we have all of these solutions which kind of have an interconnection with one another. And it's all managed from a single dashboard, which we call Cisco Security Cloud Controls, and AI Defense is part of that. So what will happen is that inside these panels inside Cisco Security Cloud Control, there is an event page. So this will actually list all of the events that have happened. So for example, if Chris were to initiate that, how do you hotwire a car, that will get blocked. Now, what you can do is you can actually, as an administrator, customize messages so that based on prompts that might be blocked, you can actually provide a response directly back to that user saying, just no, slap on the wrist, shouldn't do this. But that will actually get logged into this event screen. So the administrator at a glance will be able to see all of the events that have happened around toxic prompts, maybe people downloading and using incorrect models. That it's kind of listed all there for you. So absolutely, it's kind of it's built into what is effectively the SOC for the administrator.
And the last one is maybe what's the business model? Sort of onboarding for the client. You mentioned it's in the cloud control center, but yeah, is it an add-on if they're using applications, and what's the onboarding process?
Yeah. So what will happen is that the AI Defence itself is a multi-tenanted SaaS solution. So it sits in the cloud. It's kind of managed by Cisco. So new vulnerabilities that come into play, we add them automatically. We identify new applications, all that you would need to identify, validate, apply guardrails. All that is continually updated in the back end in the SaaS cloud. So customers don't have to worry about that. But then when you identify some vulnerabilities, you want to deploy guardrails, then there's complementary solutions we have that's part of that Cisco Security Cloud, where those guardrails are actually instantiated in those enforcement points. So for example, if you have a customer who's using an official AI app, then we have a solution called Multi-Cloud Defense, which is effectively a cloud-based firewall that sits between the customer and the AI app. And that is got the guardrails implemented in, and that's going to be doing the filtering. Am I going to allow this prompt? Am I not going to allow this prompt? Also for internal users who are going to be accessing corporate AI apps, we have an SSE client, Security Services Edge client, which sits on their device. And what will happen is those prompts will get punted to the our SSE cloud, where we have a AI engine, which is monitoring and looking at those prompts, making the determination whether or not to allow that through or not, both from the user to the AI app and also from the AI app back to the user. So as I said, there's complementary components of our Cisco Security Cloud that work in conjunction with AI Defence to provide this entire solution.
I suppose last time you mentioned guardrails, and the government's coming out with some guardrails, probably some regulatory guardrails coming through as well. How much can that benchmark, might raise an alert and might be an internal or say a NIST or some other vulnerability that's being detected. But as regulations come through, if it can start to benchmark and match against what might be government implied guardrails as well?
So at this point in time, we're using industry standard bodies, NIST, OWASP, and MITRE frameworks.
Right.
So those three industry bodies define a series of vulnerabilities that we then take that knowledge and we bake it into our SaaS solution. And we use that as part of the automated AI red team testing to test what vulnerabilities are in existence for a particular model. And so it's those industry standard bodies that we're using as a kind of a benchmark to define the open vulnerability.
So it's not so much policy driven; it's more vulnerability driven.
Correct.
Got it. Well, and I suppose what's the uptake, some of the feedback. I suppose how effective is this? And because sometimes it can be quite amazing, quite surprising from the user's perspective. Is going, okay, well that's just uncovered a whole lot of stuff that we weren't even aware of. And do we turn it off? The question is, do we turn it off?
It absolutely is. Look, we launched this in San Jose mid-January, I think, timeframe. We hosted this AI summit. We invited customers from the Fortune 100 organizations, and plus we invited a whole host of luminaries from AI startups. Actually, I think that's actually available on YouTube. It's a 6-hour video, a long time.
We'll have the link in the show notes, for sure.
Yeah, but the bottom line is that the customers loved it. There's a lot of customers who are realizing that, as I said, you can do this manually, but it's really a roll up your sleeves. It's a lot of manual work that you've got to do. And if customers have a simple, easy click button to do things, then that grabs their attention. Now, I've also presented this to a number of customers over the last few weeks. In every instance, those customers have been nodding their heads going, this is good, this is interesting, I need to learn more about this. And it's resulted in a number of follow-on discussions where they wanted to get demos, want to understand a little bit more about the technology. But absolutely, it's generated a lot of buzz, a lot of excitement amongst our customers. And I think people are starting to realize that Cisco is, yes, we are a connectivity company, but we're also moving beyond just the connectivity. We want to continue to provide best of breed connectivity options, but there's also a range of other I think, challenges that are related to that we see that we can help our customers with. And this is
very good. Well, I'm also thinking of, with my auditor's hat on, it's good to have that insights into how AI systems are working and operating, as well as just applying the general security requirements and controls that is needed. But Carl, we'll definitely hear some more from you. We'll have some of those key links in the show notes. We'll also have a link to this particular article that you wrote on this as well. But no doubt it won't be the last time we hear about AI defence with Cisco. Carl Solder, the CTO with Cisco Systems Australia, New Zealand. Fascinating field. As you say, AI will be the topic, if not the geopolitical topics for this year, for 2025. And thank you very much for joining us on our Tech and Sec Weekly.
Thank you for having me, Chris. Appreciate it.